Yo, what's up? What's up? My name is Clee, the visionary, your vision clarity coach, and this is the Build Your Vision podcast, the number one show in the world that helps you increase your influence, your impact, and your income God's way. Now, one of the most frequent comments or questions I hear from visionaries is about making more money. At least for, younger visionaries. Well, no, not really. Older visionaries, more seasoned visionaries as well. It's a very prevalent thing that's on a lot of people's minds. And let's be honest, in order to build your vision, the life you want to lead, whatever project you're working on right now, you're going to need some money. Like, you're going to need some cash. That's why I brought Bob Lotich onto the show today. He is a certified financial expert, and he will give you a glimpse into his financial journey, going from being broke and in debt to paying off his house in 10 months. You did not hear me incorrectly. Now, I did not say 10 years. I said 10 months. On the show, I addressed this. I did some research and I found out that he paid off his house. I said the wrong time frame. He corrected me. 10 months. What? And if that was enough, he was able to take a year of sabbatical from work. He talks about it on his blog if you want to check it out for yourself. But how? How, Sway? He's going to give us insight into all of that. He's also going to break down financial freedom into 4 easy to grasp sections, along with some great book and resource recommendations in this episode. So you're going to want to listen all the way through. And overall, he's just a great guy. I think you could just grab a lot of financial and spiritual wisdom from this conversation. All right, let's get into it, guys.
So it's a long story. So I think it starts for me with being a mess financially, and I think a lot of times this is where God's stories start, like where we're the opposite of where we want to be.
Exactly.
So for me, just complete mess financially. I didn't learn much about money growing up, how to manage it wisely. So I found myself in a bunch of debt. And really, I had a bunch of pride too, because I thought I knew a lot about money. I remember seeing this survey that said I think it was 70 or 80% of Americans, if you ask them if they're good with money, they say yes.
They say yes. Yeah.
And meanwhile, it's half of the country or more is living paycheck to paycheck. It's something isn't jiving here.
Something adding up here.
Something doesn't make sense. And so, anyway, so I was one of those people. I worked at a bank, and people came to me asking me money questions because I worked at a bank. But the truth is, I was a mess financially, and I was racking up debt and didn't really know how to spend less than I earned, and whatever, all this stuff was accumulating. So I finally find myself at this breaking point down in a small town in Florida, 1,000 miles from home. I had gotten to the point I had $7 left in my bank account. I had one credit card. That was kind of my saving grace. I didn't have 10. And I just had one credit card because I didn't even know you could have more than one credit card. And that was my my foolishness that saved myself. And so, and that credit card was nearly maxed out. It's $250 something from being maxed out. And then my car breaks down. And it's the day that I just got paid and I have my paycheck. I'm taking it to the bank to cash it to go pay my rent that's due in 3 hours. And right then my car breaks down. It's the worst possible time. And I'm having this freak out moment, grabbing the steering wheel, just where it's I don't know what to do. I don't know how to I don't know how I got in this mess. I don't know. But the fact is, it was just that point where everything, the lies that I had been hiding of my financial life, and me just trying to pretend that it was going to be okay. I was going to kick the can down the road. It's like robbing Peter to pay Paul. It's going to work out. It's going to work out. I finally had to come to grips with the fact that I wasn't good at managing money, and I needed to learn how. And in that humility, because it's you can't learn when you're not humble. It's your ears are closed. But once you humble yourself and admit, I don't know as much as I could know, and I could learn more, then you can learn. And so God got me to that point, or allowed me to get to the point, whatever, wherever you want to go with that. But the point is, I got there and I cried out to God and asked for wisdom and told him, what I have done has led me here. If you have a better plan, I'm interested in hearing it. I'm interested in hearing your path and how we can move forward here. And so that was the kickstart for me. That was the moment everything began to change. And then from that point, I started reading the Bible, which great advice right there. Just start digging into the Bible about any topic. And I found that the Bible talks about money. Like, this is crazy. The Bible talks about money. And in fact, talks more about money than heaven or hell combined. Like,
Yes.
which is just nuts, you know? And so I started reading the Bible, seeing what the Bible said about money, started reading every book and magazine I could get my hands on. So soaking up practical wisdom, soaking up spiritual wisdom, doing that for a little bit. And then I ended up starting this blog. And that was kind of like how this whole thing's turned into a business. And yeah.
How did you go about taking those steps to learn what you didn't know? Because you don't know what you don't know kind of thing.
Yep.
What did you do to kind of, I know you said you looked in the Bible, but were there some other things that you did to kind of get your awareness up of actually how to handle money?
Yeah, I think a combination of reading good books and the Bible like was just the game-changing thing for me, because what I realized in writing a book, honestly, is that and I always kind of knew this, but like books are by far like the greatest value, you know, outside of Jesus, like on the planet Earth. Like
Yes.
when you factor in the fact that you can take someone who is a world-class expert at A, B, or C, and they put everything they've learned into this book, into 200-300 pages, and then you can buy it for $15. It's like, it's such a bargain or a steal. Like, it's just mind-blowing. And so anyway, and I learned this from writing it. It's like we poured everything into this thing, and it's like my life's work for $15. It just seems too cheap.
Yeah.
But anyway, my point in saying that is, like, at that point, I started realizing that there are a lot of people who were really good with money who just knew a lot that I didn't know. And as I read a book, it's like you start to see, it's like, oh wow, I never thought of that way. Or even when, again, like, because I came into this a little bit very much thinking like I worked at a bank, like I know money, you know, like this kind of arrogant thing. And then you get in, you start reading other people's perspectives and how other people are doing things. Whoa, that's a great idea. That's a great idea. I had no idea. I never thought of it that way. Just, you know, and I would say the same thing about courses, you know, like, you know, the online course world is huge, and finding someone who's doing what the thing is that you want to do and learning from them. It's just, I don't know if there's a better way, you know. I mean, obviously prayer, pull that into the equation, allow God to direct your steps on your learning and what you're trying to do. But yeah, just starting to get other sources of information, like different inputs coming in, I think is probably the most important part. Like, don't just keep doing the same things you're doing. If it's just Netflix and video games, like start doing something else, get other inputs. Maybe it's podcasts about the topic or books or courses or whatever. But like, that's how you begin to like have that friction point of, wow, I didn't realize, I didn't know that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, that makes complete sense. That's what I teach. That's the model that we teach out of here is, you got a calling on your life, or you have some area that you feel called to improve. You find a coach, and then you find community. So, and people think, well, how do I find a coach? It's like, no. You don't have to actually find, like, somebody took the time to put all of their knowledge into 200 pages for you. That is literally a coach right there that you could go to on demand anytime you want. And same thing. And now that we live in this digital era, your podcasts, online courses, like, you're so right. Are there any books? Because there are lots of them. I have a few over here on this shelf. I have Dave Ramsey over here and Ramit Sethi. What are some books that you have read that have been pivotal in how you understand finances?
So it shifts and it changes. So for example, I just read one that about a year ago that really hit home for me. But I just turned 41. And so this hit home for me because of my age, you know. And how old are you, Clee?
24.
24. Yeah. So like, it wouldn't have been any value to me at that point. But anyway, the book's called Die with Zero. And kind of the argument of the book, it's designed for people who have done a good job saving, investing for the future for 10 or 15, 20 years and are in their 40s now. And it's kind of to break that mindset, that trap that some people like me might have of, let's just keep saving, let's just keep investing and blah, 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 and not taking the time to actually enjoy some of the fruit of their labor over the last, in my case, 15 years. And, you know, because it's like no day is guaranteed.
Right.
Like, you know, I think I'm going to wake up tomorrow, but I might not. And it's like, and I don't want to get to the point where I'm 65, 70 years old and wish I would have used some of that money that I've saved up for that point to go do something with my kids now. So anyway, so that's a different thing that probably not a lot of people at your age need to hear. A lot of people at your age, honestly, from my experience, need to hear, don't spend everything now.
Yeah.
Like the future is going to come and you need
Don't
to be
be at
aware, you need to
zero.
be ready. And so anyway, it's a different message for different things. But anyway, my point in that is that there's different books that hit you at different points that are really, really powerful. Another one that came out not too long ago that I think is really good is called The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. And it's blown up, like it's gotten really, really popular, but really, really good. Just high level thinking about money and thinking about, kind of the behavioral aspect, why you make some of the decisions you make and things like that. So it's a good book.
Awesome. Awesome. I will link those in the show notes for anyone that's
Yeah.
listening. I want to get into your book. It's awesome. And you break it into
Thank you.
4 sections. Those sections are save all you can, earn all you can, give all you can, and enjoy it all.
Yeah.
I want to dive into those, just some practical elements that the listener can walk away with. So
Sure.
save all you can. Now, this might be like a trigger word to some people. It's like, oh, say, you're gonna talk about budgeting and all this
Yeah.
stuff. But you have an interesting approach to this. What is your approach to save all you can when it comes to money management?
Yeah. So let me step back one little piece because this whole thing, the whole outline of our book is based off of a John Wesley quote that I heard a long, long time ago, old preacher a couple hundred years ago. And he said, I save all I can. And by that, he meant I reduce my expenses as much as possible, just so I'm not wasting money on stuff. And they said, I earn as much as I can, which is a little bit funny because he was a preacher. And he's like, I'm going to earn as much money as I can. You don't hear that every day. And he said, the reason that I do both those things is so that I can give as much as I can. And this really resonated with me because he understood that God has given him specific gifts and talents, in his case, to write and to speak, and that he could use them to impact the lives of people while being compensated with money, and then take that money and then use that same money to go help different people, and in both cases impact the kingdom of God. And I don't know, and it's just like this multiplier effect, and it just really inspired me. And so it's just been a quote I've been living by a long time. And so that's kind of what we built this whole book off of, this framework off of. And so when we're talking about save, it isn't just fill up a savings account as big as you possibly can. And we are, a big part of that section is trying to help the reader like use their money more wisely. But the thing that I think so many people miss is I'm not an advocate of just living like a pauper. Like that's not how we roll. We're not the hyper frugality people. Right. And really my goal for all of our readers is to help them spend more money on the things that they value and they're important to them, and the way that we do that is just by optimizing. It's like taking the percentage of things that you're actually wasting money on that you don't really care that much about and cutting them and then focusing more energy on the areas where you do care a lot,
Yeah. That's definitely the concept that I know I learned. And I was like, why didn't I think of this before from Ramit, where he does, I would teach you to be rich. And it's like, oh, spend very lavishly on the things that actually matter to me and then cut the things that don't really add that much value. Or I think add value to me, but I'm really just looking for it to add value to whoever I'm trying to impress by doing it. And when it comes to saving, you put me on to. So I have been using, this is not shade to anybody. So if you're listening to this, but I've been using EveryDollar for my budgeting. And it was funny, you were talking about like ignoring the red and things like that. And I've done I think I naturally have a little bit more discipline than the average person.
Yeah.
But there were still so many instances where it's just like, I don't know if this is working. So you put me on a personal capital. And I'm going to use it because it's free. I've been looking for something that's like of quality and also not breaking the bank that I'm trying to budget. Like, so thank you for that. So if anyone's listening, you're trying to figure out how to save, that's a good way. You had to be aware of what's going in, what's coming out.
Well, yeah, and that's my favorite way to identify where your spending is going, because that's like the first problem that so many people have. So they're not actually aware where they're spending, because money is so much more complicated now, because we have Venmo accounts and PayPal accounts and whatever. All this stuff is electronic. It's not like our parents where they had cash in a checkbook. It's like, it's so much more complicated. And therefore Like we need to have some way to be able to see what's going on, where we're actually spending it. And personal capital. I have a video. Anybody who wants to watch it, it's just seedtime.com/cash flow. And it goes through how to use personal capital for this exact reason, which it's free. Personal capital is free. It'll show you exactly how to do it and set it up. But like that's a great exercise for anybody to take.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm going to try to do it on my own. I'll report to my community like how it's going and see
Yeah.
if anyone else is doing it. I'll put that link in the show description as well. Now, this is the part that most people the funny thing is the thing that most people worry about is the save all you can. And that's usually the thing that doesn't get done the most.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that people try to, especially in the Christian space, kind of shy away from is earn all you can. And that's like one of the biggest things that you might need to be focusing on.
Yeah.
Because you could only cut back by so much, but you can earn pretty
Yep.
much infinitely.
Yeah. So, I mean, the whole thing starts with really identifying what is the thing that God has gifted you to do, you know? And I think that so many people miss out on this because, you know, and I should preface this by saying what we put in the book is not a list of 5 side hustles that you can go get this weekend. Like, my goal with what we're talking about is very much like, what are the big knobs you can turn? Because it's like, yes, there's all kinds of low hanging. You can go take surveys online and whatever, make $15 or something. Like, you can do that stuff, but it's not sustainable. Or even if it's sustainable, it's not going to be high impact because there's no barrier to entry. Anybody can do it. You know, like you're never going to find a legit high paying job because there's no barrier to entry, you know.
Right.
But when we identify the thing that God has uniquely designed us and called us to do and kind of go after that, we have this unfair advantage over everyone else around us. And so I've been in positions, jobs where I'm just naturally not gifted at them. And so I find myself struggling, even if I'm working really hard. Whereas someone who does have a natural gifting to do X, Y, or Z, it's easy for them. And when you are doing something that is really hard for you and difficult, and it's easy for someone next to you, it's like, who do you think is going to do a better job? Who do you think is going to get promoted? You know, who do you think is going to win the big customer or whatever? So I think that's where it starts, you know. And then the next one is just like continuing to learn and improve your craft, you know. So I've identified whatever that thing is, you know. So for me, like this big transition point came from when I got out of corporate America, working in a financial industry, like in back office, blah, 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 doing 15-word job title that meant nothing to anyone else in the world type of thing, to doing what God has created me to do, which is really to create content around money, and particularly from a Christian perspective. Like this is what He's uniquely created me to do. And as a result, it's more fun. It feels relatively easy. It's still work, but it doesn't feel anything like the work that I was doing before. Whereas that was just torturous, and you know, and I have more impact and have a bigger effect on what I'm doing. But anyway, all this to say, like, once you identify that, you want to continue honing and refining your craft. And so it doesn't matter what it is. In my case, it's like, I need to keep reading books about money. I need to keep reading the Bible.
Yeah.
Can continue to get a better understanding, continue to learn how to communicate better, how to create better courses, how to write better books, how to whatever, all the different things. Like, I think that's honoring to God when we take the gifts that He's given us and just continue to hit the gas on them and push them as far as we can go. Like, to me, this is Matthew 25, parable of the talents. God's given us something and trusted us with it. What are we going to do with it? Are we just going to bury it, or are we going to take it and push it as far as we can for His glory? You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And by you doing that, I mean, it's kind of like Solomon, where it says, and I believe is that 2 Kings 10, where the Queen of Sheba came to Solomon because he was so exceptional in his wisdom. And it said that God got all the glory. And I'm like, I want to be so good at what I do because I love it so much. And I was uniquely designed for that God gets glory from it because I'm doing it at such an excellent level.
I love that.
And I really want more people to really dive into like finding that thing, because we get so many ideas from what we see online, fed on social media, like, oh, I should do this. When it's like, no, who did God make you to be?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing I would add here too, a couple of different things. So number one, I had many years while I was in that situation doing work I didn't feel gifted at. It was really, really hard. And there is something there that God is doing within us when we're in those seasons, like Joseph in prison, whatever. Like, because I think God probably is going to lead a lot of us through those difficult seasons just as a
Absolutely.
test,
Yeah.
to see if we're still going to serve Him, see if we're still going to have a good heart when things aren't going the way we want. And so in my case, like that was a really difficult season. And so, but it isn't wasted time. Like it's not,
Mhm.
like, God's still at work. And so even though I feel like I'm not making any progress, I feel like my career's passing me by, whatever, all this stuff, like God's still doing hard work that is going to be essential to take us to the next level. And so that's important to remember. Uh, and then I think the next thing is just, I guess kind of what we're talking about here is as we're doing this, as we're glorifying Him in the work that we're doing, uh, more money typically is a byproduct of that. Not always, but oftentimes it is. And that, just kind of ties the bow on or connects some of the dots on what we're talking about here and the purpose for trying to earn more and trying to maximize the giftings He's given us.
You talked about something in the book that I have recently in fact, I spoke with, he's a live video expert, and we were talking about niching down.
Yeah.
He articulated this concept that I just came across because I've been really working hard on this to be able to teach it, called layering. And this is essentially what you talked about in the book was like, okay, you might not be in the top 1%
Hmm.
of bloggers, or like you
Yep.
might not be in the top 1% of musicians or whatever, but you could be like in the top 25th percentile, but layered on top of, oh, I'm also like great at fashion. And I'm also like an awesome communicator and speaker. Now you're like in the 1 percentile of
Yeah.
people who could do all of those things at the
Yeah.
same time because
Yeah.
you're layering who God created you to be. I think
Yeah.
that's awesome. More people should
No,
look into it.
it's such a powerful concept. Like the section I pulled out from the book was from Scott Adams, the founder of Dilbert. And that was what
Yep.
he identified. He's like, I'm not the best artist, I'm not the funniest guy. I don't know the most about business, but when I combine those three things together, like I'm at the top,
Mhm.
one of the top of all those different things. And so for us, in our case, it's like we're not beating Dave Ramsey. Like Dave Ramsey is the guy when it comes to personal finance in so many different ways. So like we can't just beat him at just that, but we can be if we lean into our natural giftings. And so in our case, it's like our approach is just different. Like our demeanors are different than Dave.
Yep.
The humor that my wife and I add to like personal finance, like just adds another element of uniqueness to what we do. And there's a few other pieces there, but like once we do that, it's like we have a different set of things that are allowing us to reach a different audience.
And I there's this thing where it's funny and where John the Baptist is preaching and he has the same message. And then literally in the next chapter, Jesus begins his ministry and he says the exact same thing as John,
Huh.
like word for word. And it's like, yeah, see, the market, quote unquote, might have been crowded,
Yeah.
but like they're two different people.
Yeah.
Like the way they present the message is completely different. And those who followed John got deliverance from how John did it, and those who followed Jesus, disciples of Jesus, they attached to how he
That's
did
good.
it,
That's
and
good.
you might not be for everyone, but you're for someone.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't accept the message unless you took the time to build it out and deliver it.
Yeah.
That's just
So
for
true.
anyone listening that's been doubting themselves. Give all you can.
Yeah.
This was my favorite part of the book.
Yeah.
Giving has been something that I've been really trying to work on recently. And it's been really difficult, especially now that I am an entrepreneur and my income fluctuates.
Yeah.
And this was able to really help me with that process, not just the practicality of it, but also just the psychology of it.
Mhm.
It like removes any guilt or any type of like laborious processes that you have to go through like mentally
Yeah.
in order to do it. Can you just dive into this section a little bit and explain like how you express giving all you can?
Yeah. So, I mean, again, I'll start from where I was. I used to hate giving. I used to be so stingy. Tell you just embarrassing anecdote just to communicate this. I remember being in high school and working at one of my first jobs, and somebody asked me if I would switch shifts with him And I told him the only way I'm going to do this is if you pay me. I literally was going to he had to pay me to switch. So this is where I was. This is where I was coming from. I'm not a generous spirit. But this is what's so great about Jesus is as we yield and submit to him, like he can change us. And he's done that. He's done that in our hearts. And now giving has become one of my favorite things in life to actually do. And I think we've found the absolute most freedom and fulfillment and joy through it. And so I'm just saying that for anybody who feels like, whatever, I feel stingy. I feel like I hate giving, like I didn't like any of that. Like, so I'm prefacing this just by saying that you can change. God can work in your heart. There's a lot of practical stuff. And that's what I love too, are some of these practical hacks that really just make it so much easier. But for me, I think what it came down to, one of the big ahas I had that started to shift this for me is once I understood, and a lot of us have grown up in church, maybe heard stewardship and this idea of stewarding, blah, blah, blah. But once I began to understand that I am simply a manager of what God has entrusted me with. So all the money in my bank account, my cars, my house, my stuff, whatever. When I understand it, one, but two, like keep it in the forefront of my mind that it's all his and that I'm just a manager of it. I'm just managing it. No different than whatever the Chipotle manager is managing that store. He doesn't own that store. Like he can't just go in there and change everything and like do exactly what he wants. Like he is a boss that he has to give an account to, and he has to follow the instructions. And when we understand that, for me, it just made everything so much easier. But the hardest thing is remembering that, And so one of the things that we did, we haven't talked about this yet, but we stopped tracking our net worth and we started calling out our assets under management. So it's the same number, but just the renaming of that term and calling it our assets under management is just this constant reminder to us that everything we have is his and we're just managing it. And so that was a thing that kind of helped me on my journey with giving. But I'm curious for you, Clee, like what did you read in that section that you felt like this helped me?
Yeah, assets under management. Awesome. It's a reframing of value and what you have been blessed with. The other thing was net given.
Yep.
So it's a new metric that I can gamify, in my life. And I never had that before where it's like, oh, like I want to make as much as I can. Like I do, but like it's so that I can give more.
Yep.
And then not like, oh, I make more money. Now I have to decide what I'm going to do. Like it's already been decided where this is going, so that as I make more, I automatically give more.
Yep.
And it adds this kind of like fun element to it, because you not only get to see the number increase, but also you get to see all the people that you've been able to bless because God has blessed you. And I think that's just a reminder of like gratitude. And like when things like aren't going well, or you might have a slump, it happens, like, oh, wow, I could look back at this and say, man, God has been awesome. Like the way I've been able to bless others, and it keeps it off of me. I want to make more. I want to have this. I want to buy that. Even if it's something that you want to buy for like a good reason. Like I know one thing I want to do is pay off my parents' mortgage. But like it's some aspect, and I say this all the time, is like in most aspects, everything we do is selfish. Like even when we give, it's like, I love the way it makes me feel. Like,
exactly.
But even more so, it helped distance kind of that natural selfish ambition that I have.
Yeah.
That really changed the game for me.
Yeah. It's so powerful. Cause I mean, just going back to our story, like I remember the first time we hit $100,000 on our net worth. We were tracking at that point, which it was great. It was a great celebration. We had a negative net worth when we started, and like hitting $100,000, like this is a significant milestone of our financial progress. And it's like, and it should be celebrated. We did, and gave each other a high five, and it's like, great, we have $100,000 of assets, blah, blah, blah. And that's fine. But when we started tracking our giving and we made that our primary metric with our net given, and now have a spreadsheet that shows, hey, we've just given away $100,000. And not only that, but we've also given away $100,000 we can see the names of each little instance here where God used us. And each one of these is a God story of something that God did or an organization we got to give to or whatever. It's like that $100,000 is so much more meaningful and
Yeah.
it carries so much more weight in it, you know? And so that was like a game changer for us.
Yeah. I would call it's like a kingdom metric. Like
Yeah.
we're here on earth and we have to do what we have to do while we're here. But like ultimately the goal is eternal life, right? And
Yeah.
it's like, of course, it's nothing close to what's really a metric of anything, you know, but
Yeah.
like it
Yep.
gives somewhat of a glimpse of like,
Yeah.
this is bigger than what I'm seeing here. So when it comes from a Christian perspective, this is also an interesting angle because enjoying the fruits of our labor can sometimes get a little foggy, especially if like you're
Yeah.
in a place of leadership or especially ministerial leadership. Yeah, can you just go into
Yeah.
how we can enjoy our resources
Yeah.
as believers?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot here, but I think there's a couple different pieces. I think starting for most of us, I think we can start with truly appreciating what we've been given because I think so many of us miss that. And so I think that's a good starting point. Just identifying, man, God has been really, really good to me. Basically, when we are thankful, I think like 5 times a day or something, or like kind of acknowledge the thankfulness, it increases our happiness by like 25%. Like, so science is like officially
Yeah.
confirmed that just like the proactive thing of being thankful and identifying things that we're thankful for, like actually makes you happier. And so just knowing that, like that people are popping pills
Mhm.
to be happier, and that it can be as simple as just being grateful and stopping and each day writing down 3 things you're thankful for. And so that's a really, really powerful thing just in terms of enjoying what you have because we already have it, you know? And then beyond that, like I think it's okay. It's important for us to understand that it is okay, like for us to be able to enjoy what God has blessed us with. And there's a time and a place to do that. There's a time to give, there's a time to save, but there's a time to enjoy his blessings. One of the things my wife and I do is we give our age as a percentage of our income. And so currently we're given 41% of our income. So we're leaning really far in that direction. And it's been amazing. And we love that. But we've had seasons where we felt like God has said, no, I want you to, this is for you. I want you to enjoy this. And I think about that as a father. You know, I have 3 little kids. You know, if I gave one of them a gift, it's like, no, I'm gonna give this to my friend. Like, I can't take this, you know. And it's like there's a point where it's like, come on, I got that for you. I knew you would like it, so I got that for you. I want you to enjoy it. And so, you know, and again, everybody needs to hear different things here, you know. So
Mhm.
somebody listening might need to hear that, and then there's plenty of other people. It's like, listen, not everything's for you. You need to give
Yeah.
some things away, you know. So again, like that's the beauty of walking with God is that we all need different lessons at different points. But the other facet of this that I'll talk about that I think is relevant to your podcast in general is um, like progress, understanding progress, because so many people don't understand this. Like in my financial journey at the beginning, I didn't get this because we all think of progress really in everything, in our business and our personal finances and whatever, repairing our marriage or whatever, is this linear phase where it just like goes up at a 45-degree angle.
Yeah.
The reality is like nothing works that way. It's very rare, you know, and especially with our finances, when you start this journey, like if you're a complete financial mess and you're like, all right, I want to start this journey, it's not just going to be this linear increase. You know, you're going to have these ups and downs, this roller coaster ride. And I break it out into 2 different phases. We have a vision phase and then a momentum phase. And the vision phase is the beginning, where at the beginning, you're doing this and it feels like you're not getting much reward for your effort that you're putting in. It's like, I'm trying to, you know, spend less than I earn. I'm trying to pay off credit cards. Feels like it's not going very fast. Feels like I'm putting in all this energy. It's just not going anywhere. Um, and the fact is, in many cases, like you're not getting as much reward as the effort that you're putting in. But what's so
Mhm.
cool and what so many people miss and never even see is there's a point along this line, this journey, where you reach this tipping point where all of a sudden you start making enough progress in your financial life where it's like now it's like you're on roller skates going downhill with the wind at your back.
Yeah.
And it's like the momentum is there and you're getting so much reward for the energy that you're putting in. And this is the compound interest thing where, any different way you look at it. But the point is, most people never get to that point. And, this might be a couple years, it depends on everyone's situation, what they have going on. But there's a point where all of a sudden things just start going so much faster. And you want to stick with it till you get that point. Because once you're there, it's easy. Because it's like now the momentum's at your back. And it just saddens me that so many people don't fight through that vision phase to get to that momentum phase.
Yeah. It's like that one strike away from gold type of thing.
Yep.
And the funny thing is, and we talked about this a little when you were talking about when you were in like corporate, and you have to remember that like you're being developed by God. Like, that Joseph in prison type of season, usually when that tipping point does happen, all the time up to there, if the tipping point happened earlier, you would have crumbled under the momentum.
Yep.
But now that you have gone through and you've gotten stronger and you've been developed, you're able to handle what God has blessed you with. So I think that's really important, especially for lots of young people, because you just get impatient, or you think that you're a failing because things haven't been working out, and it's like, just stick with it. And the easiest way to stick with it is to find something that you really love to do. Now, there's two things that you have done that I think are phenomenal, where you were able to pay off your home in 3 years, I believe. And also you were able to take a year sabbatical. Both of those are extraordinary. How?
All right.
You can pick whichever one you want to talk about.
You pick. Your show.
I guess I'll go with the paying off your home.
Sure. Yeah. So we that was one of those God stretches. So this all ties together because basically this goes back 10 years ago now. I was walking in a field near my house praying. I'd often go there to pray, and it was just a secluded field, and it was really great, like wide open field, woods all around. No one could see me. I could have my time with God. And I remember being up there praying because we were trying to pay off our house at that point. We'd paid off the credit cards, car loans, student loans, like everything. Like everything was going great financially. We could reach that momentum point, and things were moving fast, and it was really, really fun. But I wanted to get our house paid off faster. And so I was basically going to God, saying, hey, can you help us pay off our house faster? And in that, as I was doing that, like one of the clearest things I've ever heard God speak to my heart, he said, if you really want to see me move on your finances, I want you to begin giving your age as a percentage of your income. So at that point, we were given probably 11%. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. We're going to jump to 31%. Like, this is just bonkers. And so I remember going home and talking to Linda about it. I thought she'd think I was nuts, but she just got right on board. And she's like, you know what? If God is asking us to do this, he probably has something really cool on the other side of it. He's not just asking us to make our lives difficult, And so anyway, with that month, we began giving 31% of our income. And like when I looked at the math, because we were taking all the money that we had been earning, we had been putting that towards our other debts, and we had them all paid off. And now we're just focused on our house. So all that extra money was going to our house each month. And so now we're going to stop doing that. We're just going to give it all away. That's pretty much what it amounted to. And so we started that month. And the crazy thing is, like, if I looked at the math, it was going to be 10 years before we would get that mortgage paid off. And 10 months later, the mortgage is paid off. Like, just made no sense. Like, it's like, but that's the way that God does things. That's the way kingdom math works. And to this day, like, I still can't tell you how it happened. It was like loaves and fishes type stuff. But my takeaway was, when God asks me to do something really uncomfortable, in this case, specifically giving, when it makes no sense, when it's going to take me away from my goals, when it looks like this is a cruel joke that God is playing on me when I ask to get my house paid off, I want to obey, because I do believe he's got something on the other side for us,
You said that God spoke to you more clearly than ever. What did that feel like? Because I know a lot of people say, well, God doesn't talk to me like that. Like, what was that experience like?
Yeah. I mean, you can write whole books on hearing from God, of course, but the best way I can describe is that you just know when you know. Like, I remember walking in there and hearing it, like, in my heart, like not an audible voice, none of that. but just like hearing it, sensing it in my heart, and also just kind of like knowing that this isn't a random thought. Like I didn't just come up with this. This also probably isn't the devil. I don't think he's like tempting me to be more generous, and so like all of those pieces together led to this. I know that was God, I mean, and even, 10 years later, like it's still so clear to me that was God's specific instruction for us, not for everybody, but for us. It was something that he was asking us and inviting us to do,
Wow. That is amazing. That is amazing. And the fact that it was just an overflow of,
Oh yeah, it was crazy, absolutely crazy. And I'm so thankful that, because it wasn't easy. Like that's not easy. I don't think anybody would say, yeah, tripling my giving up to 31% is easy. It wasn't easy. But I'm just so thankful that we did it. And, in the faith that was built up in us in seeing God not only come through, like to provide for our needs, but also help us get the answer to prayer so much faster. Like it's huge faith builder for us.
wow. One last thing. I asked all my guests this before they sign off. If you had a billboard sponsored by you and there was one message that everybody driving down the interstate would see, what would you want that message to be that they read?
How about money's not a goal, money is a tool? How about that?
Yep. And that's facts. Hashtag facts.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bob Lotich, so much for coming on the Build Your Vision show. I appreciate it so much. I know everyone that's listening right now has learned a ton. Go check out his book. You will not regret it. It is called, so you can look it up, say it to Amazon Alexa right now. Simple Money, Rich Life, Achieve True Financial Freedom, and Design a Life of Eternal Impact. Thank you, Bob, for coming on.
Thanks, Clee. Appreciate it, brother.
Absolutely.
Wow. See, I told you there's a lot of wisdom in this episode. I want to just go back over those 4 sections that we covered in today's episode just to really just break it down and keep it simple. Save all you can. Don't spend money on things that don't move the needle in your life, and spend money on things that do. And just keep track of where your money is going. I know that I'm trying to do better with this. We talked about personal capital in this episode. The link is in the show notes if you want to access that. I'm just starting. Not gonna lie, I looked at the interface and it looked a little daunting, but that's because I'm just now getting familiar with it. I will let you know how I enjoy it. This is actually the 3rd budgeting tool that I'm using, and I'm not using them because they're not good or anything. It's just I want to see which one I like best for my personal workflow and personality, and I will let you guys know in a future episode which one I will recommend personally, from my opinion, based on different things I think will help you as well. But yeah, it's not about living like a pauper. It's not like cutting out all the things that you like. It's emphasizing the things that you like and just completely getting rid of the things that you don't like, things that you buy because of peer pressure, things that you get because of what people might think of you, things that you get out of convenience or laziness. All those things are adding up, and save all you can is really more about living life with priorities. All right, earn all you can. Set yourself up to be in the top 1% to earn a lot of money by doing what God has uniquely gifted you to do. Put your energy into doing that thing at an exceptionally high level. That way, God gets the glory and you get compensated accordingly. And this is the Build Your Vision show. So we are in the process. We know that we are building. So guys, just trust the process. We all are doing it. I am doing it as well. The last thing I want you to do is to give up when you're 1 strike away from gold. Once you hit that gold, you could give all you can. In fact, you could do that before you hit gold. Build the habit right now. I actually do want to make this like a whole movement in the BYV community to measure success, not by how much we make, but by how much we give. Net given over net worth. I mean, that is just, I love that so much. We get the income so that we can have impact and influence. It's the whole purpose of what we're building with this show. And I'm sure it's a big part of what your vision is as well. Lastly, guys, you got to enjoy it. We serve a God who desires to bless his children. God gave Adam and Eve everything they needed for their pleasure. Enjoy your fruit, as long as you remember whose garden you're in. It all belongs to God. All right, guys, y'all, all the resources that we mentioned in this episode are in the show notes. I highly recommend you check out Bob's book. And remember, if you want to get access to the best content / mentor recommendations, go to buildyourvision.co/resources so you can increase your impact, your influence, your income in half the time so that you can enjoy it with yourself and others twice as long. All you got to do is go to buildyourvision.co/resources. That's buildyourvision.co/resources. The link is in the show notes. All right, until next time, keep building your vision every single day. Peace.